18-year-old Frida Kahlo was returning from school by tram when she got trapped in a bus accident. Her spine was broken, her pelvic bones shattered, and a metal rod had pierced through her abdomen. Doctors said she will never walk again, but while she was bedridden, she started painting herself using a mirror hung from the ceiling. Her first painting 6 months later, Self-Portrait in a Velvet Dress, shocked the art world. Pain, instead of killing her, had made her one of the world's most powerful artists. This is the story of how physical pain transformed into artistic genius. But this story isn't just about an accident. This is the story of a woman born in the Blue House in Mexico's COYOACÁN neighborhood, who played with flowers and animals in childhood, later became a communist revolutionary, and had a turbulent love affair with Diego Rivera. So how did that cheerful child become a genius who transformed pain into art? Why are her paintings so striking and disturbing? How did her relationship with Diego Rivera both destroy and strengthen her? In this story, you'll learn how the polio she contracted at age 6 affected her, why she always preferred wearing men's clothes, the details of that terrible bus accident, and the painting studio set up in her bedroom afterward. Also, that famous love story, her meeting with Diego Rivera, their marriage, betrayals, divorce, and remarriage. The passion of two great artists for each other and their mutual destruction. And of course, those unique works. The two Fridas, the broken column, Diego and I, the wounded deer. The symbols hidden in each painting, the emotions concealed in each color, the pain and hope in each stroke. This isn't just a painter's story. This is the story of one of the 20th century's most powerful female figures, an icon of feminism, the face of Mexican culture, a synthesis of pain and beauty. How did Frida anatomize her own soul in 143 paintings? Why are her paintings worth millions of dollars today? And why, 70 years after her death, is she still so compelling? Are you ready? Because this story isn't just about art. This is the story of transforming pain into power, brokenness into creativity. Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderón was born on July 6, 1907, in the Blue House in Mexico City's Coyoacán neighborhood. But Frida always claimed to be born in 1910. She wanted to say she was born the same year as the Mexican Revolution. Her father, Guillermo Kahlo, was a photographer of German origin. He had epilepsy and was a quiet, introverted man. Her mother, Matilda Calderón, was Mexican and a very religious woman. Frida's childhood was unusually free for that era. Her father taught her to use a camera, took her to forests to take nature photographs. This early encounter with art became very important in her life. "My father taught me to see through a lens," she would say. "He showed me that there was hidden beauty in everything." The Blue House in Coyoacán was very colorful and lively. There was a large garden with parrots, monkeys, and dogs. Frida loved these animals very much. When Frida was 6, the first major trauma of her life occurred. She contracted polio. Her right leg weakened and couldn't develop normally. She was confined to home for 9 months. While other children played outside, she spent time alone in her room. This loneliness taught her to imagine. "I had an imaginary friend," she would say years later. "I talked to her for hours. She was my closest friend." When she returned to school, other children began mocking her leg. "Frida, pata de palo! Wooden leg Frida!" they would shout. This bullying strengthened Frida. She learned to fight, learned to defend herself. She decided never to show weakness to anyone. In high school, Frida had developed a very different personality. She hung out with male friends, wore men's clothes, and smoked. She entered Nacional Preparatoria, National Preparatory School. This school was Mexico's most prestigious high school, and only 35 female students were accepted. Frida became a member of a group called Los Cachuchas, the Caps. This group consisted of intellectual, rebellious students. They discussed political issues, talked about art and philosophy. She fell in love with the group leader Alejandro Gomez Arias. This was her first serious love. Alejandro was very intelligent and handsome, she would write in her diary. Talking to him set my brain on fire. In 1922, a big event happened at Nacional Preparatoria. The famous muralist Diego Rivera had come to the school to paint a mural. 18-year-old Frida was closely watching this famous 36-year-old painter. Diego was very big, very fat, but a very charismatic man. Frida had jokingly told her friends, "One day I will marry Diego Rivera." Her friends had laughed. Diego was married to his second wife, Lupe Marin, at the time. Frida was just a young girl, watching him with admiration. But fate was making different plans. September 17th, 1925, was the turning point of Frida's life. She was returning home from school with Alejandro. It was raining heavily that day. The tram was very crowded, so they took the bus instead. It was an old, wooden bus. The bus lost control while moving and collided with a tram. The collision was terrible. A metal rod had pierced through Frida's body. Her spine was broken in 3 places. Her pelvic bone was broken into 11 pieces. Her right leg was crushed. "I could hear Alejandro's voice," she would say. He was shouting, "Frida! Frida!" When she was taken to the hospital, doctors were hopeless. Her chance of survival is very slim, they said. After Frida spent 3 months in a coma, she woke up. But doctors gave her the bad news. She might never walk again. She had to lie motionless in bed for months. This was very difficult for this young, energetic girl. Her mother came up with a very clever idea. She put a mirror above Frida's bed, so she could see herself in the ceiling mirror. She also had a special easel made, so she could paint while lying down. "I started painting so I wouldn't get bored," Frida would say. "I had nothing else to do." She began making her first self-portrait in a velvet dress. The months Frida spent in bed shaped her artistic understanding. She made very detailed self-portraits to feel the pain. She was influenced by traditional Mexican art. Her colors were very vivid, her figures very symbolic. "I am a realist," she said, "not a surrealist. I don't paint dreams. I paint my own reality." Her first paintings were very personal. She told about her own body, her pain, her emotions. Her family and friends were shocked when they saw these paintings. They were very striking, very emotional, very raw. When Frida recovered somewhat in 1928, she began returning to social life. She joined the Communist Party. At a party meeting, she encountered Diego Rivera. Diego found Frida very different. She had now become an adult, strong character woman. Frida boldly approached him and said she wanted to show him her paintings. Diego came to Frida's house and saw her paintings. He was very impressed. "This girl is talented," he said. "She has real artistic potential." Long conversations about art began between them. Both were passionate, intellectual people. In 1929, Frida and Diego got married. This marriage shocked all of Mexico. Diego was 42 years old, 120 kilos like a giant man. Frida was 22 years old, 45 kilos, a petite woman. The marriage of elephant and dove, people said. Diego was a world-famous muralist. Frida was still an unknown young painter, but there was very strong chemistry between them. Intellectual discussions, artistic sharing, passionate love. "Diego is everything to me," Frida wrote in her diary. "My life, my art, my revolution." In 1930, Diego got big projects in America. He was going to make murals in New York, Detroit, San Francisco. Frida went with him, but she never liked America. "Gringoland is very cold," she said, "a soulless, loveless place. She became very homesick in America. She missed Mexico, its colors, its culture. She made very important paintings during this period. Henry Ford Hospital, My Birth, self-portrait on the borderline between Mexico and the United States. These paintings were very striking. They criticized American culture and defended Mexican identity. In 1932, she became pregnant in Detroit. She was very happy. She always wanted children. But complications began. The pelvic bone damaged in the accident put her pregnancy at risk. Doctors said, "She can't give birth. It's too risky." Frida had a miscarriage. This event deeply shook her. In her painting, Henry Ford Hospital, she depicted this pain. She drew herself in a hospital bed, covered in blood. This painting was so striking that many museums refused to display it. Diego was a womanizer. He constantly had relationships with other women. Frida knew this situation, but had difficulty accepting it. The biggest betrayal happened in 1935. Diego began having an affair with Frida's sister, Cristina. This was an unbearable blow for Frida, her closest sister and her husband. "Diego killed me twice," she wrote in her diary. "Once with my heart, once with my soul." She made very dark paintings during this period. A Few Small Nips was one of the most striking. In 1939, Frida was invited to Paris. The leader of the Surrealists, ANDRÉ BRETON, wanted to include her in their group. "You are a natural surrealist," said Breton, but Frida refused. "I am not a surrealist. I am a realist. I paint my own reality." She opened an exhibition in Paris. She began to be recognized in Europe. But Frida didn't like Paris either. "Too intellectual, too artificial," she said. The only good thing was meeting Picasso. Picasso had really liked her paintings. In 1939, they divorced Diego. Frida was very sad but remained strong. During this period, she made her most famous painting, Las Dos Fridas, the Two Fridas. In this painting, there are two Fridas. One is the traditional Mexican Frida that Diego loved. The other is independent, strong Frida. The hearts of both Fridas are open, connected to each other. One bleeds while the other is strong. This painting showed the war in her inner world. In 1940, Diego and Frida remarried. But this time, the conditions were different. Frida laid down conditions: separate living expenses, no sexual relationship, no mutual faithfulness. "I love Diego, but I don't own him anymore," she said. This second marriage was more egalitarian. Frida also had independent relationships. She had relationships with both men and women. She didn't hide her bisexual identity. After the 1940s, Frida's health rapidly deteriorated. Spinal problems increased. She was in constant pain. She underwent 35 surgeries. Sometimes she stayed in bed for months, sometimes wore steel corsets. She became addicted to painkillers. Morphine, codeine, alcohol. "What do those with feet do?" she wrote in her diary. "I have wings to fly." Even during this period, she didn't stop painting. She held her brush even while bedridden, in a corset, in pain. Mexican culture was always present in Frida's paintings. Aztec symbols, traditional clothes, tropical plants. "I am Mexican," she said. "This is my identity. I keep this alive in my paintings." She was greatly influenced by pre-Columbian art. There were Aztec figurines and traditional masks in her house. She often wore Tijuana wedding dresses. This had become her iconic look. "My way of dressing is also my art," she said. In the 1940s, Frida began to be recognized worldwide. Exhibitions opened in America and Europe. In 1947, her painting, Self-Portrait with Thorn Necklace and Hummingbird, became very famous. Art critics began praising her. Unique talent, dazzling originality. But Frida was very modest. "I just paint what I experience." Time magazine put her on the cover. Mexican autobiography. In 1953, Frida's first solo exhibition in Mexico opened. Despite being very ill, she came to the opening. She was brought to the exhibition on a bed. She received guests while lying there. "Even when I die, I will live," she said that night. In 1954, her right leg became gangrenous and was amputated. This was the final blow. She died on July 13, 1954, at the age of 47. The official cause of death was pulmonary embolism. But the last words she wrote in her diary raised suspicions. "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return. Viva la vida!" When Frida died, she was only a painter known in Mexico. She didn't have international fame. But in the 1970s, the feminist movement discovered her. The image of a strong, independent woman who suffered but never gave up inspired feminists. Hayden Herrera's biography was published in 1983 and became a bestseller. The movie, Frida, starring Salma Hayek, won an Oscar in 2002. Today, Frida has become a pop icon. Madonna, Beyoncé, Lady Gaga imitate her Frida style, is popular in fashion shows. Her poster is the best-selling in museum shops. There are millions of posts with hashtag Frida Kahlo on Instagram. Her paintings sell for astronomical prices. 2006, Roots, $5.6 million. 2016, Two Nudes in a Forest, $8 million. Frida didn't just paint. She created a new art form. Surreal self-portrait tradition. Pioneering of feminist art. Defense of cultural identity. Transforming pain into power. Modern artists are influenced by her. Cindy Sherman, Tracy Emin, David Hockney. Frida's importance for feminism is great. Control over her own body, openly living her bisexual identity, not being dependent on Diego. Strong woman image. "One is not born a woman, one becomes feminist," she said. The Blue House in COYOACÁN became a museum in 1958. Today, it's Mexico City's most visited museum. Everything is preserved as it was. Bed, painting materials, clothes. Visitors feel the atmosphere she lived in. Frida Kahlo's story is the most powerful example of physical pain transforming into artistic genius. That terrible bus accident, instead of destroying her, made her one of the world's most compelling artists. Her greatest achievement wasn't just painting, but finding her own voice, emerging from Diego Rivera's shadow to create her original style. "I paint my own reality. I paint whatever passes through my head without any other consideration." She anatomized herself in 143 paintings. Each self-portrait was a confession, each brushstroke a scream. What about you? How can you transform your own pain into art? Are you ready, like Frida, to turn your brokenness into creativity? Frida Kahlo's story shows that the greatest art is born from the deepest pain. And sometimes our most fragile moments create our most powerful works. From a cheerful child playing in a Mexican garden to an artist who transformed suffering into beauty, Frida proved that our wounds don't have to define our limits, but can become the source of our greatest strength. Her final words in her diary capture her essence. "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return." Long live life. Sometimes the most beautiful flowers grow from the deepest pain. What's your story going to be?